Hi there, it's Donovan. What do you mean the Nintendo Switch 2 doesn't have any personality? What? Watch this! Personality right there! Welcome back to one last game, the Tonight Show that pretends to be late night, but is actually recorded at 5 p.m. So, I would like to talk about with the audience today, what are your guys' thoughts on Nintendo's operating systems? More specifically, their most recent operating system, that being the Nintendo Switch 2, which is technically an evolution of their old operating system from Nintendo Switch 1. In my opinion, what I value truly in an operating system is its ability to just get things done in a productive manner, in an easy manner, and in an efficient manner. And though a controversial statement, but I think the Nintendo Switch 2 operating system achieves those 3 points tremendously well, with an asterisk and some quotation marks. Why? By that I mean like a video game operating system. Its primary objective is to be the middleman. It's to get you from one place to another. Just simply play the game, and you're off to the races or back into Hyrule. And I believe the Nintendo Switch 2 operating system does that tremendously well, mainly because of its very, very high speeds. The Nintendo Switch 2 operating system, unlike things like the PS5 or the Xbox's operating systems, it really does not take up much space at all. I believe it was rumored to be around like 6 gigabytes. 6 gigabytes in total, it really isn't a lot for an operating system. Look at Mac OS, that one's like 20 gigabytes large. The Nintendo Switch 2 operating system is a tiny breadcrumb compared to modern operating systems of today. And I believe that is a very, very giant strength of the Nintendo Switch 2. But now all that speed comes at a cost of, let's say, personality, you can say. Now, in order to talk about Nintendo's personality, we have to go backwards a little bit, and we got to talk about Nintendo's other operating systems, such as their very first operating system, not counting the GameCube or Nintendo DS. We have the Wii with the Wii menu. All of that just screams the late or mid 2000s. Everything during that era, including for operating system designs, was primarily based on skeuomorphism, which is the idea of bringing real-world elements into a digital landscape in order to have people familiarized with the concept of interacting with digital elements. And though today that barely exists anymore, back then that was all the rage, and I think the Wii menu really did wonders to sell the idea that it is the one and only destination to go from point A to point B. For example, the Wii channels, mimicking that of TV channels, it has all of those great Wii channels that we all know and love, such as the Me channel and, I don't know, the Everybody Votes channel. Let's get political here. This is a late night show after all. But yeah, in regards to personality, the Wii menu did a lot to bring its personality forward, you can say. It just felt alive. It had a lot of, heart put into every single one. All of them had different animations that would play, all of them running at the same time. It just felt so lively, and especially the iconic Wii home menu music. That I can just hear it. Like, it replaced white noise with Wii menu music. I think we've achieved world peace. But that really did wonders to sell the ambiance of a very calm and peaceful home menu system, and that just asks really one question: what do you want to play? But all in all, the Wii menu was kind of bare bones in a way. You had the Wii message board, that's kind of a cute way of Nintendo email. I was too young to experience that, so I have basically no memories of that other than looking at my time playing Wii Fit. But if you did get a message from the Wii message board, you would get a blue notification around the ring light of the Wii console, which is very, very cool. But it's just another point that shows off that personality, that human touch, because it actually showed the actual the mail. It wasn't just a static white screen. I mean, the Wii did scream white as hell, but it also had that human touch with the envelope opening up, and that's very cute. And if we get into the nitty gritty of the Wii menu, we can go into the Wii channels themselves, though not directly part of the operating system. They are built in to the operating system as little freebies, such as the Me channel. The music is iconic. It's just the de facto Me Maker music, though in future consoles they did change it up. The Me Maker on Wii is still the de facto Me theme, and it was just really fun creating Miis with people and your friends. Using the Wii remote and pointer, and all of your friends can just sit down on your couch and just create a way, and making imitations of your friends, really good or really poor. Or you can make, I don't know, Peter Griffin. That's always fun. You also had stuff like the forecast channel or the news channel. Imagine getting your news from the news channel back in the day. You must be crazy. We have the Everybody Votes channel. Democracy for all. You can vote on, I believe, just dumb little polls, and whose Mii's better, stuff like that. But all in all, the Wii menu really sold the idea of having that personality. It showed those skeuomorphic elements that brought the real world to the digital world. And also, when you press the home button on the Wii, it would bring up the home menu settings, where you can easily reset without standing up, because gamers are lazy. Oh my gosh, I forgot to talk about the Wii what is it called, the Wii shopping channel. That music is sublime. It is a great just shopping experience just for the music alone. But other than that, the shopping experience itself, it was alright. You could kind of find your stuff. There was a bunch of WiiWare stuff that was always nice. It was basically Nintendo's form of indie games. The loading screen for the Wii shopping channel was very cute, with Mario jumping in the air, but we'll get to shopping experiences later. The Wii menu, it was decently fast and also had a personality, so I think it gets double points for that. But as for the DSi, it really is a precursor to what we'll talk about next, the Nintendo 3DS operating system. But it was really a light version of the Wii menu with all the little icons. It came with the Nintendo DSi sound with that fucking bird that I hate. That had the DSi shop, which is, also had a pretty banger soundtrack. I also still don't have too much of a connection to the DSi, other than, well, you can buy a calculator if you really wanted to, if you were really brain dead for some reason. But the Nintendo DSi was certainly an upgrade from the base Nintendo DS's quote-unquote operating system. Like, if you did anything with the Nintendo DS, not game-related, like, I don't know, change your clock settings, you'd have to shut down the system entirely and basically start from the beginning. That was a little annoying. So its operating system was pretty limited. So the DSi was certainly an upgrade. But something that I can talk about is the Nintendo 3DS's operating system. Now, this is one of much personality. It did have its own ambiance, though it's not too memorable. It did have, all the icons spin around if you blow into the microphone and give, your 3DS a blowjob. And the 3D effect was really wacky on, like, Activity Log, where the pencil just flies in your face. That still to this day blows my mind, Here, wait, watch this. 3D right there. But where the 3DS really excelled was its themes, more specifically the theme shop, where you can download anything with a price, but you can download any theme to your heart's content, and it would change the sound effects of the system, of the home menu, of the music of the home menu, and the looks of icons and folders. It was pretty awesome. And as well as the built-in 3DS games like Face Raiders or Street Pass Meat Plaza, which is just one of the best built-in operating system features of any gaming system. That ability to just connect with other 3DS users, just passing by. and bringing their Mii's to a fun little minigame collection is just so nice, so fun and endearing. That the 3DS home menu and operating system truly was, I believe, Nintendo's peak when it comes to operating system personality. Primarily because it is carried hard by Street Pass. Street Pass is a great feature. But you also had stuff like game notes, notifications, and an actual robust friend list this time. I believe you could do friends on Wii with friend codes, but 3DS put friends more at a center point. And as well as the 3DS camera, something that carried over from the DSi. That was very nice. You could do 3D images and all that. The Nintendo eShop originated from the Nintendo 3DS and was still orange-blue, and it had a little shopping bag with a face on it named Baggy. He was so cute. I loved the orange aesthetic of the Nintendo eShop, even though it doesn't make sense because Nintendo's primary color is red. But I love the music in there. If the 3DS eShop was a real location, I'd stay there every day. It's just such a vibe. Especially, the loading screen when downloading a piece of software. The little, water bags flowing into the icon, and with Baggy just walking by sometimes. It's so cute. I love that. The Nintendo 3DS eShop it's a great place to buy games. You even had reviews on there, something the Nintendo Switch does not have. You also had, this is not a built-in piece of software, but it does have huge integration with the Nintendo 3DS operating system, and that is Nintendo Badge Arcade, where you can collect badges and place them anywhere on your home screen to your heart's content. So you can create scenes, or you can create terrible abominations that would ruin your entire home screen. But it's nice that you could do that anyways. You can even put badges on your folders to add even more personality. It was a very personal system, the Nintendo 3DS was, and it just evokes so many happy memories for me, being able to just customize to my heart's content, and just all the little quirks it had. It was very, very cool.
Hello, hi, yes, it's me again, Editor Don here, filling in for my stupid host DonovanDud because he can't remember to talk about things, and I'm just here to say, actually, you forgot to talk about the activity log, which you briefly mentioned, but the activity log, unlike on Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2, where it just shows increments of 5 hours, activity log actually shows a detailed report of how many hours you have spent wasting your time on Miiverse. It also had a really cute scrapbooky look design that still calls back to the skeuomorphism that dominated the 2000s. Those useless AR cards that came with every Nintendo 3DS system was associated with a built-in app and allowed you to, play with your AR cards for like 5 minutes. The 3DS also had built-in e-manuals for every game into the home menu.
Its one downside, however, was that the Nintendo 3DS was very, very slow. It took just a good minute to maybe open some software, probably because either the software was too big or the 3DS operating system is doing too much in the background. And honestly, doing stuff on the 3DS operating system was kind of slow in general. It would take, it would stutter a little bit when you're uploading a theme or going into an app or adding some badges, or pressing the home button, and it just, it took like a solid 3 to 4 or 5 seconds to just open the home menu. You press it and it would just freeze, and there we go. You're at the home menu now. So at the cost of so much customization and personality, the speed was significantly lowered, and that very much was a problem on the Wii U. The Wii U operating system and home menu, the ambiance is very, very chill. It is sublime. I love the startup theme. I personally never owned a Wii U because, I have a brain. I never bought one, but I always envied, its operating system. It looked very nice. It kind of mirrors what Apple's doing today with liquid glass. The Wii U had a very glassy effect, and it's similar to the Nintendo 3DS, but just to an HD effect. This was Nintendo's first HD system, and it really showed. The Wii U home menu looked really, really nice, especially with Wada Wada Plaza and all the Mii's walking around. All of that alone screams the human touch that we all desire. The Wii U even gave you a happy birthday. That's so kind of them. It also had Miiverse, which is what the 3DS also had, which I've spent an embarrassing amount of time on Miiverse. I was like 8 to 11 years old when using Miiverse. I should not be on there. Luckily, I did avoid all the interesting posts on Miiverse, but again, Miiverse really screamed at me that personal, that fun, quirky touch. Even though it was a really shitty Twitter for children, it was just very nice to have. Also, the Miiverse music. Every time I open that up on the Nintendo 3DS, it brings back so many memories. And just looking at the Miiverse is no longer supported message brings a tear to my eye. But the Wii U's biggest problem was that it was super slow. Same problem with the 3DS. When you press the home button, it would freeze, and it would take a moment. And especially going back to the home menu, that took a solid 15 seconds. Prior to a Wii U update, like when it first released, those load times were atrocious. But it still had that personal flair. The home menu had Wii U menu icons, flying about, and the music, it was so calm and soothing. It was like a Zen garden, you could say. It was very nice. You had, TV remote features, Nintendo TV. You could use that Nintendo chat thing. Yeah, I never owned a Wii U again. I have no idea. But the Mii Maker on Wii U was also kind of nice, but you weren't able to see what the people were making, or you could see the Mii on the TV, but all the Mii Maker controls were on the gamepad, so it felt more isolated in that way. It looked very nice. It was just incredibly slow.
Hey, how you doing? My name is DonovanDud, filling in for Editor Don because he got sick and tired of explaining what Donovan missed out. So I'm here, Dominic Dud, to show you the cool things of what Donovan forgot to talk about, such as the Pikmin transfers on Wii U, and Nintendo 3DS. They were so adorable and cute, and Donovan was visibly and audibly disappointed when they did not show up for Nintendo Switch 2. I think they all got murdered once they went into that rocket ship. The Nintendo Classic Editions had amazing UIs that called back to their different eras of video games. For the Nintendo Entertainment System, you had this 8-bit menu that called back to the 80s with all of its amazing sound effects and wonderful, delightful music. It just all lined up for not a super complex operating system, but one that evoked what the spirit of the Nintendo Entertainment System was. And that's the same for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System Classic Edition, where it had a 16-bit design with even funkier music and more awesome visuals and sound effects. And it also had a rewind feature, something that the prior Nintendo Entertainment System Classic Edition did not have. Why am I saying the entire names? I don't know, it just sounds cool to me, and they are pretty wicked operating systems that evoked the charm of the era. Now, the cherries on top for those would have been if they included like an e-manual within the operating system, but you have to go to Nintendo of Japan with a QR code to experience those.
Which is where we come to today with the Nintendo Switch 2 operating system, an evolution of the Nintendo Switch 1 operating system. Many people still today are pretty angered that the Nintendo Switch operating system has zero personality which I even understand. When the Nintendo Switch 2 was first revealed, I hoped that it would have a revamped operating system that would bring so much more charm and personality without sacrificing speed and stability. Unfortunately, the personality aspect was lost in favor of speed and stability. But I firmly believe that that is more of a right decision. In recent days, and especially in the design world, we have moved far away from skeuomorphism. That is such a 2000s era thing, where now, people are very accustomed to technology, and things can get more minimalistic and abstract with designs. Now, skeuomorphism, in my opinion, though very cute, it kind of feels a little disorganized and kind of scrappy and just uncleansly, you could say. I feel like the minimalist designs of today's operating systems feel very, very neat, very professional, and well organized, and it kind of has a personality in its own right, being so abstract, and it just strays away from the real world, and the world today just has moved on from skeuomorphism to a more minimalistic look for its system designs, or just designs in general. And the Nintendo Switch 2 and Nintendo Switch have followed suit with a pretty minimalist looking home menu, and I personally don't have an issue with how it looks. I really do enjoy the looks of its icons. It looks very neat and minimalist. It communicates very well what its primary purpose is. But the Nintendo Switch home menu shows one thing prominently, and with pure focus, it asks, what do you want to play? And shows all of your games lined up in a row with the additional apps just at the bottom, and a much smaller size, communicating that it's not the primary focus. You buy a gaming system to play games, and here it is. You select a game and you're in. It just loads instantly. Whenever you press the home button, it doesn't stutter like the Wii U or 3DS. It immediately takes you to the home menu. It is quick and snappy and fast, and pressing your page and to see your friends list, it's very fast. Open the Nintendo eShop nowadays, not back then, but nowadays, super fast. You scroll down. Back then it was terrible, but nowadays it works instantly fast, and it's pretty good. The news feed, you select the news app and it opens instantly, unlike where I believe on the Wii you had to go through a specific channel. Maybe it was the Nintendo channel. You'd have to wait for the channel to load until it did, and you had to load into your news feed to get updates on Nintendo. On Nintendo Switch 2, just open the news app, or it's integrated right when you wake up from sleep. Your news is right there on the left side. Press the Y button and you're instantly there. Something I forgot to mention with the DSi and Nintendo 3DS was download play. A very, very, very convenient feature to play games with people that don't own the game. You could share a copy with just one single copy of the game. It was very robust and fast and nice, and though you did have to download data, it did take a while. It was a very convenient feature. That feature now evolves today with Game Share on Nintendo Switch 2. Now it's using the streaming technology found in the Wii U gamepad for its quote-unquote download play use for Nintendo Switch 2. We tried this out with Clubhouse Games, and all it did, we did a couple presses, and we were instantly in a game like we shared one copy. It was instant and fast, no downloads required. We also have virtual game cards, which shares the idea that a physical game card, you can give it to someone else and they can play the game. Now that applies to digital games, which is a very nice touch, where you could share digital games with your friends on your Nintendo account, and just swap between them. It's very robust, very fast and efficient.
Donovan forgot to mention, if you select show more and then you go to groups, the Nintendo switches to solution to folders. This is really lame, but for Donovan, because he's a weirdo, he actually doesn't really like having folders at all show up on his systems. He just likes having the raw dog icon on his home screen, and that's the same for the Nintendo Switch 2's home menu. He actually likes the groups instead of folders because he's weird.
Quick settings on Nintendo Switch 2 is so much better than just pressing the home button on like a Wii U or a 3DS, and it's ridiculous. On Nintendo Switch 2, just hold down the home button and you get instant controls like screen brightness, volume, and you can also change up what GL and GR do on your Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controller.
Unfortunately, all of this comes at the cost of the lack of personality. Take a listen at the Nintendo Switch home menu music. Wasn't that a banger? Nintendo eShop doesn't even have music, though they say it does not have music primarily because they wanted videos to play instantly and whenever you switch, and it would just interrupt the music experience. The Nintendo 3DS eShop had music. What are you talking about? Yeah, Nintendo Switch 2, its operating system, it's so plain and barren. It has like no personality. It's so sad. You just get from point A to point B, which is something that I value most, but it would be nice to have some cherries on top with, hints of personality. The meme maker on Nintendo Switch 2 is still depressing as hell. Sure, you got a lot of options, but at what cost? It feels so sad to create in there. There's no music. It's just you and your thoughts. I just wish they would have brought back music. And the lack of Street Pass, I would have loved to have Street Pass on the Nintendo Switch 2. I mean, it's a handheld as well, not just a home console. It'd be nice to have like an evolution of Street Pass v Plaza. But at the end of the day, it would take up a lot of system resources, especially when it's in sleep mode, and kill the battery life. So they probably wanted that to be a Nintendo 3DS exclusive, or they just wanted to save on the system's battery life and resources, which is just unfortunate. But that's not to say the Nintendo Switch 2 lacks personality within its operating system. In fact, it does have personality, just in very hidden ways. For example, you can use mouse controls on the operating system, which is a very nice touch, but there's a couple Easter eggs when you're learning how to use mouse controls. You can actually click on some of the aspects of the say tutorial, pop balloons. That's really cool. When you're in controllers, you can go up a musical scale. The shoulder buttons will rise in pitch. That's really cool. Again, as I showed on the lock screen, you can press the shoulder buttons, or you can press in the control sticks to have different sounds play. All the applications in the bottom and your page at the top all have their own unique sound effects, something that the Xbox and PS5 don't have. It's nice, and they all also have their own animations. It's pretty cool. And though it's only at the start, they did have setup music. I don't know why they didn't bring it to the home menu, but it did have music, including the startup where the Switch 2 logo comes in and all of your icons and games come in with this marching band theme, and they all get set up. I wish that would happen every time I turn on the console instead of waking it from sleep, like shutting it off and powering it on instead of waking it from sleep. I wish it did that every time with the logo coming in and all the icons coming in with the marching theme. Why? I love that. That's so much personality. And as well as attaching and detaching a Joy-Con 2, it has its own sound effect and it shows the color. I like that. That was also on Nintendo Switch 1. With My Nintendo Rewards, if you redeem your Platinum points, you can change up your user icons with a bunch of games like Mario Kart World, customized to your heart's content, and that's very cool.
And if we really want to get specific, let's talk about Virtual Console. Though not super integrated into the operating system, they are still integral parts of, say, an extended life of the operating system. Definitely a weird take, but Virtual Console on the Wii, 3DS, and Wii U kind of pale in comparison to what Nintendo Classics offers today, because Virtual Console on the Wii, it was simply just an emulator and nothing more, with no real basic UI. On Nintendo 3DS and Wii U, they got a little more advanced with a suspend point, but only just one, and on Wii U you can even button map for certain consoles like the Nintendo 64, I believe, or even the Nintendo DS, where you can switch how you display your games. But that all kind of pales in comparison with Nintendo Classics, though with a small library at first, it grew tremendously over the 7 years of life it's had to a really streamlined and simple UI that just shows the box arts in full glory. You can change up your controls, you can have 3 suspend points, you can rewind now, all in a very minimalistic UI. Though some people can do without the borders, it's not really that big of a deal. And the Nintendo Classics service offers online play, though to a varying degree of success depending on everyone's potato Wi-Fi. Once everyone has good Wi-Fi, it'll work pretty well, and you can just play all your favorite games online with friends, something you can't do on other systems. And if you connected a Nintendo Classics controller to that specific Nintendo Classics app, it'll have special sound effects that'll correlate with the system's respective big Mario game. That's a big point for personality right there, altering sound effects and altering the color schemes. You can even clap and make fun of people with a Mario pointer, which is really funny.
You have stuff like Game Chat, which I don't use, but Game Chat just works instantly, and I know many people do not appreciate how I've never used Game Chat, but I can appreciate the technical skill it took to make that to work so easily and seamlessly with such a bare bones operating system. Again, the goal of the Nintendo Switch 2 operating system is to keep it small and light, and a Game Chat functionality would be pretty taxing, but it works instantly. From what I see, just press the C button on your controller and just hop into a room and you're just chatting with your friends. And if you get a webcam, just any webcam, or if you have the Nintendo Switch 2 camera for some reason, the system will, it'll show your face just like any regular webcam. You can digitally mask out yourself, which is something like a very powerful AI tool, something that works on, your iPhone and my iMac right here. That's pretty powerful stuff. That stuff goes unappreciated by the public. And I can see the technical skill it took to get that to run super well and instantly. Like, you press the button to share for your camera, and it just works. It's super fast and convenient. Although, when you're sharing your screen, it's super choppy. But again, Nintendo did not want to compromise on the performance of their games, so they sacrificed, screen sharing quality, where, it runs at a really low frame rate. But, if you're watching someone's screen and, it has it in the background, it's not like you're watching a Twitch live stream or a YouTube live stream. You don't want, like, peak quality. So I'm fine with, a low frame rate stream. It's not like I'm watching, a movie. It's just a side thing to what I'm primarily doing, which is playing my own game. So I appreciate how, they sacrifice, the performance of the video chat for the performance of your game. Just the illustrations all over the Nintendo Switch operating system in general, that's very nice. We don't see that on PlayStation or Xbox. It's just a nice touch that we don't even see on, like, Apple's operating systems. Those very nice illustrations, or the icons, giving their own animation and their own sound effects. It's very nice. Even when you like tap the screen on the original Nintendo Switch, it would give certain sound effects. Move the analog stick when you're in the controller settings. The certain sound effects will play and your controller would light up. Even then, the system recognizes what controllers you have, from Nintendo Switch 1 Pro Controller, Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controller, whatever Joy-Cons you have, Nintendo Classics controllers like N64, GameCube, and Nintendo Entertainment System. It recognizes that. It's very nice. All in all, the Nintendo Switch 2, though on the surface it lacks personality and at the cost of performance, which I greatly appreciate. But that's not to say personality is lacking within the Nintendo Switch 2. In fact, unlike many operating systems of today, such as the PS5, Xbox, Windows, Mac OS, iOS, Android. Nintendo Switch does have personality, whether it's, the color of your controllers, the specific system sound effects, the animations of icons, your ability to change your user icon, or the little Easter eggs sprinkled throughout. It just works very, very well, and I greatly appreciate that.
And if we want to get really wacky, we could talk about Alarma, but I would have to be insane to buy that. Sneak peek for next video.
This has been One Last Game, and as you know, the show will not end until one last game. So what are your thoughts on the Nintendo Switch 2 operating system? Do you value personality or performance? And though everyone would wish they would find an even middle ground, I believe they did find an even middle ground. Now the only thing that is missing are themes. Why are there still only 2 themes?